13.
So how late back was the Spider-Man movie in development? Back in 1986, when Canon Films was the big deal, they actually had a promo reel with a lot of movies that either did not happen or didn't even come close to happening, or happened and then went on to become some of the most notorious bombs in movie history. Stuff like Superman 4, Over the Top, you name it. But in that package, there was one movie in particular that is of note in this situation here, and that was a live-action adaptation of Spider-Man.
Within this unsuspecting city, history's greatest experiment creates tomorrow's greatest superhero. Spider-Man, the movie. A live-action spectacular directed by Joe Zito, based on the characters created by Stan Lee.
So at one point they were going to do a Spider-Man movie, but unfortunately it got stuck in development hell. Canon eventually shut down, and Spider-Man was eventually licensed to Sony Pictures in 1999 after it acquired options from both MGM and all previous scripts drafted by Canon, developed by Canon Films, Carol Co., and New Canon. Exercising its option on just two of those elements, they had this multi-script acquisition, which was credited to, of all people, James Cameron, Ted Newsom, John Brocato, Barney Cohen, and Joseph Goldman, and who was the pen name of Menahem Golem of Golden Globus, and a later treatment credited solely to Cameron. And so Sony basically took that Cameron material and hired David Koepp, the writer of Schindler's List, to basically write a script for it. They had a number of different directors involved at one point. Roland Emmerich was attached to it. Tim Burton was attached to it at one point. Chris Columbus, David Fincher was attached to it at one point before Sam Raimi eventually got the job in 2000. And script went through some rewrites, and then in the summer of 2001, when people went to go see movies like Jurassic Park 3 and American Pie 2, they saw a teaser trailer for a particular movie that is coming out next summer, and that was, of course, the Spider-Man trailer that you're going to see here. A great trailer that unfortunately I can't show all of it because of copyrights and all that, but and of course that and the poster that came out around that time, a teaser poster with the World Trade Center and Spidey's eyes, had to be banned because a couple months later, September 11th happened. So that was one of those things that it's a great trailer and a great poster that unfortunately will probably not be seen on any official physical media release, but at least it's still available out there through the magic of the internet, so you can still see it out there, and I recommend checking it out because it really is a fantastic teaser trailer. But not only that, but for the time, this movie was the only film to ever reach $100 million in its first weekend, which was unheard of. I mean, the biggest opening weekend up to that point happened only 6 months ago with Harry Potter, which brought in over $90 million. I think it was around close to 91 million, if I'm not mistaken. But that was the top right there, because nobody really thought that anybody. There was really a belief that nobody could really sit in the movie theater, be in a movie theater, and have it be packed as much as it could to make over $100 million. But this movie proved that to be not the case, because $114 million on its opening weekend, which was unheard of back then. Nowadays, if your movie didn't open to $100 million, it's officially considered a flop most times. But you know, I mean, if they didn't think $100 million was going to put a whole bunch of seats in the theaters, imagine what would have happened 17 years later when Avengers Endgame made over $337 million on its opening weekend. Yeah, it was the first movie to ever reach $100 million on its opening weekend. It had the largest opening weekend gross of all time. Was the most successful film based off of a comic book, and made over $821 million worldwide. It was the third highest grossing film of the year, even though it was the number one domestic film of the year, and the 44th highest grossing film of all time, seventh at the time of its release. So, and here's the interesting thing about this: like Spider-Man made all this money. No movie came close to making $100 million until Shrek 2 did it in 2004. That's a 2-year gap. So nowadays it's kind of common to have a movie go hit $100 million or more, even $200 million or more, but back then, that was unprecedented that this movie did that, and it took 2 years before another movie even came close to topping that marker there. But that just goes to show you what the lasting power of this movie was back then when it came out. So, over 20 years later, how does the film itself hold up? Well, the story here, do I really need to tell you what it is? It's the origin story of Spider-Man. You have a high school geek, Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire, who gets unexpectedly bitten by a radioactive spider while on a class field trip. He then starts to feel sick and on the cusp of death that night, only to wake up the next morning feeling much better and realizing that he's got the superpowers of a spider, including climbing up walls and using web slingers to fly around New York City. Meanwhile, an experiment turns Peter's best friend Harry's father, Harry played by James Franco, the father being Norman Osborn, played by Willem Dafoe, into a supervillain known as the Green Goblin. Peter has to stop the Green Goblin from taking over the world and saving his crush, Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst. I mean, do I really need to say anything more about this movie that hasn't already been said? It's a really great movie. A flawed movie, yes, but a great movie, too. You know, you could tell Sam Raimi was a rabid Spider-Man fan, and when a director has such a love for something that makes a movie off that subject, most of the time the film does not usually end up as well as it should be. But with Raimi, you can definitely tell that he didn't let his love of the character overshadow what he had to do to make a great movie. And it really does show. Tobey Maguire creates this incredible resemblance of Peter Parker as both the high school geek and the radically altered superhero that he becomes, and the chemistry between him and Kirsten Dunst is very believable and very romantic at times. I mean, that scene where he's dangling upside down and she kisses him in the rain, it's just like, that's one of those iconic romantic movie moments. That's from a comic book movie, not from a romantic comedy or anything, but it's just so well done. I mean, most of the action sequences are very fun to watch. There are still a lot of things about the action sequences that are still pretty cool. The shots of Spider-Man flying across the city is well done. I mean, they still look pretty impressive for the most part. I'll get to that in just a sec. I'll get to the flaws of that in just a second. And it does move at a good enough pace where you never get bored. You get so invested in the story and what's going on, and you just really do feel the weight and the massiveness of this particular film that makes it the classic that it is. But that said, there are a lot of major flaws that hurt the quality of the movie. For one thing, there's a point in the middle of the film where the movie just stops to promote Macy Gray. You know Macy Gray, that character, that singer who was around for a little bit here in the early 2000s, and in here it feels kind of pointless since even by that point in time, she, like I said, she was already moving out of obscurity, and nobody really ever talks about her nowadays. And another thing about the movie is that as much as Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is very good, the big problem with Peter Parker in this movie is that he doesn't do the snarky comments like Spider-Man should have. I mean, the one scene where he actually has a snarky comment, it's so bad that even the actors on the commentary think the line is bad. I mean, it's hard to believe it took us until Tom Holland to get the Spider-Man that we've been waiting to see, a character that was well put together, but also can have the snarky comments as well. And that's why I think Tom Holland does a very good job as Spider-Man in those movies. And the scene is also the perfect segue into a lot of the biggest problems with the movie, specifically the Green Goblin. Like, Willem Dafoe is a great actor, and he could have made a great Green Goblin, but he plays it so over the top, and it's bad. It's really, really bad, but it's bad in kind of a fun way too. Like, it's ridiculous. The costume he wears is too much. It's too cheap looking. Like, it looks like something that does not exist in this world that they're setting up in. But then again, there's a lot of cheap stuff in this movie. I mean, the trailer right there, the first commercial I showed you, basically shows you that one of the scenes that was so memorable in the movie, where Spider-Man is lifting Mary Jane away from the Green Goblin's attack, and that's supposed to be. It looks like a dummy, and they had that in all the trailers, thinking that was going to be like the big moment. It was one of the big moments in the movie that everyone's going to remember. Well, they remember it for not the reasons that you think they would remember it, because it's obviously a dummy Spider-Man. It's not actually him, and it's just like, even Kirsten Dunst gets this look on her face like, this thing is not really Peter Parker. This thing is not Spider-Man right now, and like, yeah, it looks pretty bad, and there are a lot of effects in here that can look really good sometimes, but then there are some effects that look pretty bad, like cheesy bad, but also really, really bad. Like, they really thought that they were going to get away with this. Like, but going back to Willem Dafoe, I was thinking about the 1989 Batman movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dafoe tried to do something similar to Jack Nicholson's Joker in that movie. But the main difference is that Nicholson was playing that role over the top like the Joker is supposed to be. The Green Goblin is supposed to be over the top. He's a straightforward villain, and Dafoe I think really kind of ruined what could have been a great villainous role for him, at least in this movie, because he did get a little bit of a It's when they brought him back for Spider-Man No Way Home. That's the Green Goblin that I wanted to see in this movie. I think that was a much better representation of the Green Goblin in that movie, but in No Way Home. I think they did a better job there than they did in here, and I think that was part of the reason why they brought him back there, to kind of give him a little bit of a reconciliation and give him the role that he was born to play. But I compare Spider-Man to the 1989 Batman movie. It's a really great and fun action movie, but it definitely has a lot of flaws to it. And kind of like with Batman back then, it changed the game for superhero movies in general, specifically Marvel movies, because now this has become the norm. We get Marvel movies every single year, and it all kind of started with X-Men and Spider-Man, and then there are a few hiccups here and there that we'll eventually get to, stuff like Daredevil, stuff like Hulk, stuff like Elektra, and then the game really changed for good when Iron Man came out, which we'll delve more into that when we get to that one in about 6 years' time. But Spider-Man, I think, is a great origin story for a great superhero. It was only the beginning of things to come for Spider-Man, because 2 years later they would get a sequel. But we will delve into that once we move forward into 2004. But Spider-Man, what more do I gotta say? It's a classic film, well done superhero movie for the most part. Fun, can be over the top and silly as well, but it's still a lot of fun. So who was going to open up against Spider-Man? What two movies were going to try to combat Spider-Man and bring some counter programming in there? There were two of them, but neither one of them proved to be successful. And let's start off with the first one we have here, and that is Deuces Wild.
How to protect the neighborhood.
Stephen Dorff, Brad Renfro, Veruza Balk, Frankie Muniz, Balthazar Getty.
I run the Deuces. I don't back down from nothing.
Matt Dillon, Drea Di Matteo, James Franco, Johnny Knoxville, and Norman Reedus.
That's Viper's territory. I'll take care of him. This comes back to me. I don't know you.
This Friday, two worlds will collide.
Come on my block again and I'll kill you.
And things are gonna get wild.
Get all the guys down here now.
Deuces Wild.
It's going down tonight.
Rated R. Starts Friday.
Yeah, it's not a good sign if the first thing the announcer is saying is Stephen Dorff. That's not a good sign. Even in 2002, that's not a good sign. But the story here of Deuces Wild is you have two brothers, Leon and Bobby, who are the members of a street gang in Brooklyn known as the Deuces. Their brother was killed by a drug overdose a few years earlier, and the gang is determined to keep drugs off the block. Another more vicious group known as the Vipers is a possible threat to Leon and Bobby's efforts. The Deuces are determined to do whatever is necessary to keep drugs off their block, even if that means dying. And this is a corny gangster film. I mean, it's a crime drama. You've got Stephen Dorff, Brad Renfro, James Franco, Matt Dillon, Veruza Balk, Drea Di Matteo, Balthazar Getty, Matt Dillon, Frankie Muniz, but Norman Reedus. I mean, a good cast overall in here, except for the guy who's at the top of the charts here. But this is a really stupid movie. And Martin Scorsese was actually one of the original producers on here and took his name off the film. That's how you know it's bad, when Martin Scorsese wants nothing to do with this. And 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I know I keep talking about Rotten Tomatoes not being a good source to go to, but if it's 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, then you know something is bad here. The idea just sounds really corny. It's supposed to be it feels like a much more serious version of West Side Story, except without the music, and it's really, really dumb. It's a stupid movie on so many levels, and not even the actors that they have in here that are good actors can save it from being a complete mess of a film that is just... It just feels like it was a mess on so many different levels. Nobody really knew exactly what they wanted to do with this storyline here. What was the end result here? What was the point of all this? What was the objective here? If you want, this doesn't feel like a film that should be rated R. This feels like something that they wanted to try to squeeze a PG-13 out of, but it's just no, we got to make it R because, we can't have a PG-13 storyline sending around getting drugs off the streets. I mean, who wants to do that? I mean, in fact, I don't even know if that's the case here. I just remember this movie being really, really stupid. That even if it was a PG-13 movie, that would probably make it even worse than what this is. It's just the elements for an R-rated film, they're clearly not in there. You expect to be promised some TNA in here, and you don't really get it in this movie. You really do not get it at all. It's barely there, and it doesn't really amount to anything significant. Even the violence isn't all that unique or exciting. The action sequences aren't even that unique or exciting. These shootout scenes are not that exciting. There have been so many better movies of this type that you'd be better off just watching those movies and not watching this garbage right here, because this is a bad film. It just, like I said, if Steven Dorff is the first thing they're trying to sell you on, that's a bad sign right from the get-go. So yeah, avoid this movie like the plague, for the love of God. But so that's Deuces Wild. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie we have here, and that's Woody Allen's latest film, Hollywood Ending.
Dr. Kevorkian. I gotta get a picture. When you're cold, you're cold. This is humiliating. I'm up here shooting a deodorant commercial. I got 2 Oscars.
He acts with a fine director. There's nothing I wouldn't do sexually for him.
You should take a full-page ad in the DGA magazine stating that, because you'll never stop working.
DreamWorks Pictures presents Woody Allen, George Hamilton, Taya Leone, Barbara Messing, Mark Rydell, Treat Williams. Hollywood Ending.
He's a genius.
So in Woody Allen's latest film, he plays the main character, Val Waxman, who is a once prestigious film director who suffers hysterical blindness due to the intense pressures of directing. And you see there Taya Leone, George Hamilton, Deborah Messing, Mark Rydell. They're among the cast in this as well. Tiffany Thiessen. This is one of those movies where it's better than some of Woody Allen's last movies, but it suffers a lot from the same problems that the last Woody Allen movie he made was, The Curse of the Jade Scorpion. That was the fact that he's putting himself in the title role, and he's already in his 70s. I think he's already in his 70s at this point, if I'm not mistaken. He's getting close to 70 in this 1935, so he was about 67 years old. Like 67 years old, and his love interests are Deborah Messing, Taya Leone, and Tiffany Thiessen. And it's just like, they're much younger than he is in this movie, and I think that's really one of the biggest problems with the movie here. But unlike something like The Curse of the Jade Scorpion, there are things about this movie that I do like. I think there are some things about the film that are very funny, and this was actually the first Woody Allen movie I really wanted to see, because I saw the trailers for it. It looked kind of funny, and I thought there was things about it that did kind of work. I thought there were some elements there that I thought were very amusing, and sure enough, when I watched it again, it's definitely there, but really, the magic really isn't there anymore for Woody Allen at this point. When it feels like he's really kind of like chugging along here, but he would have a little bit of a reprieve once this movie came out. Like, it started with Anything Else, which I think is a criminally underrated Woody Allen film with Jason Biggs and Christina Ricci, and then followed that up with Match Point and Scoop, and then he made these, and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. There was a point where he was coming back from some really lackluster films, and this was probably the last one. This was the last one before he started his eventual renaissance here. It's not a bad Woody Allen movie, but I'll be honest, the reason I saw this in 2002 was because, you got Tiffany Amber Thiessen, and of course she, for some reason, after Saved by the Bell, all the people from Saved by the Bell had to get stripped down their clothes. I mean, Elizabeth Berkley did it in Showgirls, Lark Voorhees kind of did it with How High, and then Tiffany Thiessen, I mean, this is probably like the third or fourth movie I've seen her in up to after Saved by the Bell ended, where she's in sexy lingerie, and it's just like, that's a win-win in my book. I mean, for the 13-year-old that wanted to see the film. But like I said, it's not the worst Woody Allen movie, nor is it really a good one either, but it is better than some of the ones that he'd done before this, like The Curse of the Jade Scorpion. I think it's a far superior film, but I think it is. I think there are elements to it that are good, but not enough for me to really recommend it in general. So take it for what it is. If you can stand to see a couple of good, decent moments in here, it's good for one time. It's maybe good for a one-time watch, but you'll probably never want to watch it again afterwards. So that's all I got to say about that one. Hollywood Ending.
It's good, the usual stuff.
I want you to follow somebody. I want the truth.
From the director of Fatal Attraction,
You're the only thing in my mind.
Richard Gere.
Do you love me?
Diane Lane.
Of course I love you. Can't do this anymore.
Stay from her.
What did you do?
Unfaithful. Rated R. May 10th, only in theaters.
I mean, this is pretty much basically a gender reversal of Fatal Attraction, honestly. Except this time, instead of the guy in the affair, it's the woman now in the affair. As you have the story of a couple living in the suburbs of New York City, the couple played by Richard Gere and Diane Lane, whose marriage goes dangerously awry when Lane indulges in an affair with a stranger played by Olivia Martinez, who we later see as the villain in SWAT, who she encounters by chance. And naturally, they have an affair, and chaos and sometimes some hilarity to some dark, sick, twisted person ensues. But yeah, this is a movie where it's interesting because Adrian Lyne hadn't made a notable erotic thriller since Indecent Proposal, and even then, that wasn't really an erotic thriller. That was the last big success that he had. Of course, he was known for his work with Fatal Attraction, which was surprisingly nominated for Best Picture in 1987. But this is only his third film since then. I mean, he did the infamously bad Lolita with Sharon Stone, but he also did Indecent Proposal, and actually this is his fourth film because he did Jacob's Ladder too, which I think is probably one of his stronger films overall. With that, next to that, and also Flashdance, I mean, those two really are the toppers for me. But Unfaithful proves that the guy still knows what he's doing. This is probably the last great erotic thriller that actually came out, because everyone's trying to create the next Basic Instinct, and not every one of them was a great success, and some of them very rarely made money. I mean, the closest one was Indecent Proposal, coincidentally directed by the same director, like I said. But it works because of the actors. Richard Gere is very good here, but it's really Diane Lane who's really the star of this movie. I mean, she is in control of this movie, and I mean, like, there's a reason why she was nominated for an Academy Award for this, which is surprising to think about, because the movie did not do well, and yet this movie got a Golden Globe nomination, an Oscar nomination, and was nominated for several awards, which really tells you about how well this legacy is held for it. And the scenes in this movie do get pretty intense, and lives up to the term of an erotic thriller. I mean, this is something that I think Adrian Lyne was trying to do with Deep Water not too long ago, and that movie just didn't work because it's a story we've seen done to death. And I think this was the last real time that they could make this work, and make this kind of concept work. Because not too long after this, Sharon Stone tried to do it again with Basic Instinct 2, but we all know what happened there. And like I said, some of these scenes can get very, very erotic, and honestly, that's probably the best thing for a movie like this. That really is the big thing that needs to work in an erotic thriller. The sex scenes have to be very unique and very different in order to stand out, and they do a pretty good job of handling this. I mean, to the point where, the head of Fox at the time, Tom Rothman, actually took what was supposed to be the iconic scene in the movie when Diane Lane's recalling her first encounter with Paul, the Olivia Martinez character, as she takes a train home, recalling the first time they ever had sex, and that was a scene that was so captivating that they took that out to all the critic circles, basically, and that was seen by many as the scene that eventually got Lane the nominations that she got for Best Actress at the Oscars and the Golden Globes, it still holds up. Like, this is the type of film that a movie like this should be like. Like, it's really hard to make a movie like this, and even this guy Adrian Lyne tried to prove that again 20 years later with Deep Water. But like I said, that time has passed right now, and it really is you really have to be you have to be able to give us something new and unique to really make this genre come back and swing in the swing of things again. But this was probably the last time this actually was able to work the way it is. I mean, it's not a great movie by any means. It definitely has a lot of flaws in the story department, and you can kind of predict where it's going to go, but the performances really do stick out the most of this, especially Diane Lane, and that's where I really think the movie stands up on its own. Like that, and the sex scenes are actually pretty good. I mean, it's a very solid film. It's not a great film by any means, but it's definitely a film that has more to it than a lot of these erotic thrillers that were trying to capture the success of Basic Instinct kind of failed to do. And this was kind of one of the last ones that really was able to make that work, and I thought it worked pretty well. So I'd recommend it. Maybe as a one-time watch. Maybe not one you'd want to watch over and over again, but you get some good performances from the leads in this and some good scenes in there. So that's all I got to say about that one. That's Unfaithful. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is the comedy The New Guy.
He needed someone
He having troubles.
to show him the ropes.
You gotta build some muscle. Well, motivation's on the way. Just roll around. You'll be alright.
Now he's coming back
This place is a zoo.
to inspire everyone. The New Guy.
Want to take my clothes off with your teeth? Okay, you talked me into it.
Opens Friday.
And in one of the biggest examples of I mean, that last 10 seconds right there, it's just like, hey, you want to take my clothes off with your teeth? It's just like, oh, and then it's like rated PG-13. It's like, oh. Even though there is an unrated version of this movie, which is slightly better, but I'll get to that in just a second here. But you have here DJ Qualls from Road Trip, who is a high school loser who gets himself expelled so that he can move schools and reinvent himself. Learning how to be a cool former prison inmate played by Eddie Griffin, he renames himself Gil Harris and is quick to make new friends and soon gains respect from jocks and geeks alike. He begins dating the popular girl played by Eliza Dushku and unites a once divided school and also greatly improves its football team. And eventually Gil has to face his demons from his old school when they face each other in a football game. And a strong cast in this movie. I mean, DJ Qualls from Road Trip, but Eliza Dushku, Zooey Deschanel in one of her early film roles, Lyle Lovett, Eddie Griffin, Sonny Mabry, Elena Douglas. There's cameos by a lot of people in here. Vanilla Ice has a really funny cameo in this movie. There are things about this movie that are legitimately funny. They are very, very funny, and they are just. It's that thing I talk about with a lot of movies like this. It's stupid, but it's funny, and maybe not one of the strongest movies overall. Like I said, I think the unrated version is a lot better because they do delve into some more insane situations in here. Like there's a storyline here where, Dizzy, in the storyline in the uncensored version, Gil Harris, the character that Dizzy basically becomes, murdered a guy in Rhode Island before being sent off to prison. Well, no backstory was ever named for that in the theatrical version, which I think is very, very interesting. And it's a movie that really is. It's not a great movie, but it does have those brief memorable moments of laughter that I got from it, specifically the Vanilla Ice scene. And seeing, Eliza Dushku, Zooey Deschanel in their especially Zooey Deschanel in one of her early film roles. Like I said, it's not a great movie by any means. In fact, you can honestly make the argument that it's a bad movie. I mean, it got panned when it came out, but did pretty well overall when it was with the box office. But I don't know. Do I think DJ Qualls ever could have made it as a star if he ever got more scripts after this? Because I don't think he really did a whole lot more after this, except for The Core and showing up in a couple of TV shows. He was on Breaking Bad. He was on Big Bang Theory. I don't think he's ever been in anything of noteworthiness in terms of movies since then, I think. I'm looking at this thing here. Well, he was in Hustle and Flow. I completely forgot about that. Delta Force, not very great. He was in the second Road Trip movie. He was in All About Steve, and yeah, those movies probably not memorable movies by any means. But it looks like he's had a good career in television. He's been in stuff like I said, Big Bang Theory, My Name Is Earl, Breaking Bad, Supernatural, Hawaii Five-0, Man in the High Castle. I remember him now from Man in the High Castle. That was actually a great show that was on Amazon. So he has done some stuff here. So maybe he's just moved into television because I think that's a comfort zone for him. But I don't know if he could have ever made it as a feature film star after Road Trip and The New Guy. But hey, good to see that he's having success in television. But yeah, like I said, nothing too spectacular about this movie. A couple funny moments here and there, but not enough for me to say I'd recommend the film. But because I really don't. But I don't know. I have some fond memories of it. So take that for what you will. So that's The New Guy. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the last one we have here, and that is Ultimate X, the movie. Oh wait, I'm sorry. ESPN's Ultimate X, the movie.
Warning. This movie is so exhilarating. It can only be seen in IMAX theaters and other large format cinemas.
On May 10th, the Ultimate Movie with the ultimate thrills is on the ultimate big screen. ESPN's Ultimate X.
This guy's crazy.
PG May 10th at IMAX theaters and large format cinemas. Check local listing.
Back when Disney was trying their damnedest to keep the extreme from the 90s into the 2000s, because, of course, we had an extremely goofy movie to start the decade off, and then we got this movie here, and so basically this is a documentary about the 2001 X Games featuring athletes like Dave Mirra, Travis Pastrana, Mike Metzger, Bucky Lasik, Brian Deegan, Matt Hoffman. It also features clips from the events in Philly, including the finals between Bergquist and Lasik, which Bob won a first-ever score of 98 in the crash of Kerry Hart while he was attempting the first-ever Moto X backflip. Of course, you get Tony Hawk in here because, why not? He's one of the most notable skaters of all time, one of the greatest skaters of all time. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not much of a skateboarding person. I mean, I only know Tony Hawk mostly because of the fact that he's everywhere, and he has the video games, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. But for some reason, I wanted to check this movie out when when they were announcing this. I don't know why, just something felt kind of cool about it. And again, maybe it was because of the fact that it was on a large IMAX screen, And like I talked about before with Beauty and the Beast, IMAX was not all over the place like it is right now. I mean, and it was very hard to actually find this movie in a local theater, so that's why I never got around to seeing it in theaters, which I only got to see it on video and DVD when it came out, and I thought it was alright back then. I mean, it was basically delivering what it promises, you know, like, here, watch these athletes do these incredible stunts on a big screen, and on IMAX that probably would look cool. On a small screen, still looks nice. It still looks nice overall, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed I never got to see this on a big screen, because I really feel like this movie would have been perfect to see on a gigantic screen. And like I said, unfortunately, that never really came to be. Something of note about this movie is that this director, Bruce Hendricks, would later actually go on to direct 2 of the first real movies that would kind of launch us into the digital 3D era that we went to in the late 2000s with the Hannah Montana concert and the Jonas Brothers concert. Both of them, the Hannah Montana one was the first big success of that digital 3D era that really proved to everybody that, hey, there's a lane here for this. I mean, I take that back. It wasn't really the first real success of it, but it was the first idea that, you know, digital 3D could actually, really 3D can actually be useful. I mean, there was a couple of other concerts around that time, like U2 3D, and of course we had Beowulf, which had come out a couple months prior to that. But I'm flash forwarding here to 2008 here, but it just goes to show you what this guy has done since this movie's come out. And like I said, it's perfectly serviceable for what it is. I'm not really much of a skateboarding person, but it would have been cool to see these incredible stunts on a big screen if I had the chance to see it in an IMAX theater. But I'm glad I got to see it when I did. It doesn't have that same level of intensity that I think it would have had on the big screen, but like I said, I think it's fine for what it is. Yeah, even for somebody like me who doesn't like who doesn't know a lot about skateboarding in particular and these extreme stunts, there's still a lot here to admire about this movie. I think there is a lot of fun aspects to it that does make it work. So, I recommend it. Ultimate X, the movie.
Blast, that's why I hate flying.
Anakin, do copy. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Always a pleasure to meet a Jedi. Rated PG.
I think to kind of set this up, we should play the Simpsons clip.
I say Phantom Menace sucked more.
I say Attack of the Clones sucked more.
Fellas, you're both right. And when I say both right, I mean Carl was right. Attack of the Clones is worse. This is the bottom of the frickin' barrel for Star Wars. You could say Rise of Skywalker is the worst of the worst, but I'm sorry. You people out there on the internet ruined that movie because you made The Last Jedi one of the most polarizing movies for no reason whatsoever, and you made Disney completely abandon their plan altogether for what they were going to do with that movie. I am convinced that Rise of Skywalker was made to try to appease the internet fanboys who got so pissed off at The Last Jedi. There is no way in hell that was the last movie that they intended for that. That was what the plan was for the last movie. There's no way that was possible. Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent there, but I'm sorry. I'm still peeved off about that. Everyone says that Star Wars has been worse under Disney. No, Star Wars has been way better off than Disney. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you can't admit that, but I'm sorry. The prequels are still terrible. Case in point, the worst of the prequels. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Yes, you thought Phantom Menace was bad? This one makes Phantom Menace look like the original Star Wars by comparison. Set 10 years after the events of the Phantom Menace, the galaxy is on the brink of civil war, led by a former Jedi named Count Dooku. Thousands of planetary systems threaten to secede from the Galactic Republic after Senator Padme, played once again by Natalie Portman, evades assassination. Jedi apprentice Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, becomes her protector, while his mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, investigates the attempts on Padme's life. Soon, Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan witness the onset of a new threat to the galaxy, the Clone Wars. Now, yeah, this is, like I said, if you thought The Phantom Menace was a bad movie, Attack of the Clones completely says, oh, we can make it much worse for you, because as bad as Phantom Menace is, this one is an abomination. This is still the worst Star Wars movie, and it's not even close. I mean, it's so bad that The Simpsons, another Simpsons parody here, they parodied this to perfection just a few years after this movie came out.
Regulatory agencies? What the fark butt?
Before the Galactic Senate votes, we shall call roll. Star System Abaton.
Yeah.
Star System Acroilius.
Agong.
Star System Trebulon Prime.
Whoa, Mama, finally some action.
Mr. Chairman, I propose a procedural amendment to Space Bill number 371.
You'll wait your turn.
Very well.
Trebulon Minor.
The decision is final. Tabled, this motion is. Or is it?
That sucked.
I mean, honestly, they did a pretty good job of telling you everything that's wrong with this movie. But look, yeah, Phantom Menace is a bad movie. It's a bad sequel. It's a movie that everyone was overhyped for. You know, we all got excited for it, and then when we finally saw the film, we let it go at first, and then slowly but surely we came to the realization that, yeah, this is not very good. But you know what? There's still a lot more to admire about this movie, and at least something is happening compared to this movie. That's what makes this movie even worse than the Phantom Menace. I mean, this is a boring movie. I mean, it's just... I tried to stick with it. I tried to give it every opportunity that I can. But I'm sorry, there was nothing worth watching in this movie at all. At least in the Phantom Menace, you had cool aspects to it. You had a lot of things about it that looked pretty cool. I mean, the pod race scene. I mean, like they got in the Clerks animated series. It was like, objection, Your Honor. The pod race was pretty cool. Like, that stuff. And then, like, some of the other things in there. It's just like, there's at least some things in Phantom Menace that I can at least appreciate what they were trying to do. But this... there's nothing here. I mean, the action is so poorly executed. The visuals look so choppy and so fake. The acting is very mediocre and bland. There's nothing about these characters that I give a shit about. Even the ones I like. I like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I thought he'd be the best. I said he probably is the best thing about this movie. But the scenes where they're trying to create a love relationship between I'm so out of it right now. I'm getting words together, but they're trying to build a relationship between Padme and Anakin, and those are really, really cheesy scenes. And even for Star Wars, this is pathetic for how cheesy this is. And it's a long movie. And I'm sorry, I think The Simpsons pretty much said it best. Nobody gives a shit about trade negotiations in a Star Wars movie. Give us the action. Give us something that we actually want in the Star Wars movies. This entire movie was nothing but trade negotiations and a trade negotiation feud. Just like, who cares? Like, give us what we want in the Star Wars movie, for God's sakes. I mean, this is bad. This is really, really bad of a movie. I mean, I cannot believe that this movie insulted the intelligence of the fans. George Lucas basically insulted the intelligence of his audience. Like, and he says these movies are for kids. It's just like, because you know what kids really want to hear about? Trade negotiations. Like, nobody gives a crap about that. No kid wants to see that. Show them the stuff they want to see. Show them the action in space. You know, show them the lightsaber fight. Show them all the characters that we know and love. It's just like, don't show us this garbage. Like, it's asinine, and it still is the worst Star Wars movie. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. Rise of Skywalker is not a great movie, but it kicks the crap out of anything that this piece of garbage tried to do. Like, this is a bad movie. This is an abysmal mess of a film. It's the worst of the prequels, bar none. Phantom Menace was at least trying, and didn't succeed for the most part, but it wasn't that big. It was a big disappointment, but it certainly pales in comparison to the abomination that Attack of the Clones is. And, luckily, Revenge of the Sith will kind of change that around for the most part, but we'll get to that one in about 3 years' time when we get to Revenge of the Sith. But this, I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. Attack of the Clones is still the worst Star Wars movie. It may be the worst thing Star Wars has ever been associated with. And I've seen the holiday special. The holiday special was at least silly, over-the-top fun. It's so bad it's good type of thing. But this, no, I can't defend this in any way, shape, or form. So, sorry, if you think Attack of the Clones is great, more power to you. But I'm sorry, this thing sucks. This thing really, really sucks. So, So, yeah, so that's Attack of the Clones. Let's try to end this on a positive note, no. How about a really good movie that came out this weekend, and no better movie get the horrible, horrible taste of Attack of the Clones out of your mouth than Hugh Grant in About a Boy.
You self-centered, superficial loser.
It's about relationships.
If you're gonna be with someone, shouldn't you tell them the truth?
No, it's about friendship.
I was only trying to feed it.
You're the one who was throwing bloody great loaves at the Dutch.
Yeah, he was. It's about commitment.
An anger, childless, and alone.
Both fingers crossed, yeah. It's the movie Us Magazine proclaims the best comedy of the year. Bloody hell. It's About a Boy. Rated PG-13 at theaters May 17th.
So in About a Boy, Nicholas Hoult, in one of his early film roles, stars as 12-year-old Marcus Brewer, who lives with his chronically depressed single mother, Fiona Brewer, who's played by, I believe, Toni Collette. I thought it was Rachel Weisz for a second, but she comes in later on. But Marcus will decide whatever he can to make his depressed mother happy, even if it causes him grief. As such, he realizes that he's perceived as different than most kids, and even the self-professed weird kids don't want to hang out with him, as he's the target of bullying. Part of the taunts against him are the fact that he sings and speaks to himself without even realizing that he's doing it. Meanwhile, a 38-year-old man played by Hugh Grant is a slacker who has lived comfortably off the royalties of a song written by his deceased father, and as such will never have to work again in his life. He is a solitary man who places himself as the first and only priority in life. He comes across the idea that dating single moms meets his selfishly carnal needs. It is in this capacity that Will meets Marcus, as one of Will's single mother conquests, Susie, is friends with the Brewers. Trying to escape his life, but wanting Will to date Fiona, Marcus infiltrates Will's life, much to Will's chagrin. Will slowly begins to realize that Marcus is more than just a nuisance, but rather somebody who needs guidance navigating through the trials of adolescence and the trials of dealing with a suicidal mother. And perhaps he can play a small part of providing that direction. Conversely, Marcus might be able to show Will the path to becoming a real adult. Based off of a book by Nick Hornby, this is also written by... I thought last time this was written by Richard Curtis, but now this was written by Peter Hedges, who went on to do Dan in Real Life, and this is both written and directed by Paul and Chris Weitz, who did American Pie and also Down to Earth, and it's a nice change of pace for them. This is a really solid film. Rachel Weisz is also in here playing a sort of the love interest that Hugh Grant wants to be with, but I do really like Hugh Grant in this movie. I think he's given a very solid performance. I like Nicholas Hoult. This shows a lot of his true potential as an actor that he would have going down the road. Toni Collette's very good in the movie. It's a nice, serving little film that benefits from the late performance by Hugh Grant. And it is a really good movie that doesn't just go for the typical, rom-com romantic ending. It has one of those endings that really hits you in the mouth real quickly, and I like movies that don't go the typical route that they usually should. I like that this movie has the balls to actually go that direction, and I give him a lot of credit for that. I think this is a very good film that really shows, hey, Hugh Grant's still got the chops, and this movie can still really do a lot to really surprise you and go in a direction that you didn't think it was going to take, and it's a very well-made film. It actually made for a really great, underrated TV show that came out not too long ago. It came out around the time Parenthood was coming to an end. And it was a great show. It lasted a couple of seasons, but then it kind of went away. It's a shame, because it was actually a really good show. It had Minnie Driver in it, too. And it's a really good show. If you haven't seen About a Boy, the series, I do recommend checking that one out. But this is a really well-made film. It's got a nice heart to it. It's not afraid to show you the ugly truth, but it's not afraid to show that, hey, these comedies can actually have more to it. Like, I like the balance of comedy and drama. I like the casting of Hugh Grant and Nicholas Hoult and the entire cast in general here. It's a very well-made film, and it shows that these directors who started off with American Pie have a lot of range as filmmakers, and that would later show down the road with some of the other films they've made. I really like this movie a lot. I think it's a well-made film. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. About a Boy. I mean, not much more I can say about it. It's a great film. Seek it out if you can.
Didn't expect to see you this soon.
A brilliant writer of murder mysteries
Working on a new book, Mr. Finch?
has found a way to live them out.
Everything changes you. Who am I speaking to?
And only one cop can stop him.
You don't hide from me in a town this small.
Where is she, Finch?
I have great respect for your profession. That's why I write about it.
Insomnia. Rated R. Starts Friday, May 24th at a theater near you.
So in this movie, you have two Los Angeles homicide detectives, played by Al Pacino and Hilary Swank, investigating the murder of a teenage girl in Night Mule Butte, Alaska. After the killer witnesses an accidental shooting committed by one of the detectives, they create a plan for both parties to mutually avoid prosecution. The killer being played by Robin Williams. A very different role for Robin Williams. And one of the reasons why this movie is amazing, I mean, this is a movie where you have Robin Williams playing somebody completely off character, and not in the it's a different role from either his comedy or those Oscar baity dramatic roles that he was in. This is a role that is completely different from what we've seen him in before. He did a lot of this during the course of the decade, taking these darker movies. I mean, Depths of Smoochy is probably a good example. Depths of Smoochy was an example of going darker, but this 1 Hour Photo, The Final Cut, The Night Listener, he was even on Law and Order SVU in a very out of character role for him. Like, it's interesting to see the direction that Robin Williams decided to go with, and you know what? He makes it work. I mean, this movie, he does come off as very intimidating. He's not the goofy Robin Williams that we've come to know and love, which is not a bad thing. And I mean, that's really what I like about this, is that it's a completely different role for him personally, and he's got two really good people to work off of, Al Pacino, Hilary Swank. They're all Oscar winners, and you know, Memento was the film that introduced everybody to Christopher Nolan. This is the movie that I think showed what Christopher Nolan could do as a filmmaker, because the way this movie is shot, the way the film is presented, it's very, very unique, very unusual for a movie of this caliber. And believe it or not, it was the last time he directed an R-rated film up until Oppenheimer this past year, which is saying a lot. I mean, you could completely forget that something like, you know, The Dark Knight or something like Inception got a PG-13 rating. Inception maybe, but The Dark Knight, yeah, it's amazing how that got a PG-13 rating with some of the stuff they got away with in that one. But yeah, Insomnia really is a very good film. It's based off of a remake of a 1997 Norwegian film, which I've never seen, so I can't really say if it's any good or not. But I definitely did like this one too. Also, no, this is the only film that Nolan has not written or co-written. I mean, he's written a lot of his movies, but this is the only one that he's never written, and it's very interesting to see that, because you could definitely tell that the script overall, it's good, but it isn't that flair that Christopher Nolan usually brings to the table with his movies, and you'll see that as we go down the road here with movies coming up with his name attached to them. But if you ever wanted to see a movie where he does not have a hand in the script overall, this is definitely that film. And like I said, it's not bad. It's not bad that he didn't write the film, but it's very different than what we're used to seeing from Nolan's work, where he's not involved in the filmmaking process. And Al Pacino's character is great in this movie. He's playing a character who is basically trying to solve this murder, but he can't get to sleep, and he's going through there's points where he feels like he's going through various days without getting any sleep. And even if I've been through this type of situation where I've had a day or so when I couldn't get any sleep, that's the worst feeling in the world. And I've only had that happen for 1 day. The fact that he had this going on for 4 days straight and even more than that too. It's just like I don't know how he was able to pull this off, but movie magic, I guess. But yeah, everybody in here works. You know, Al Pacino, Robin Williams, Hilary Swank. A cast that also includes Maura Tierney, Martin Donovan, Nicky Katt. A lot of good tension, a lot of good mysterious elements to it. The mystery is very good, even though you know who the killer is. You're trying to figure out how's he gonna keep doing this when they got these two detectives on his trail. And it's just like they do a pretty good job of handling that. It's a very entertaining film, a role that's completely outside of the norm from Robin Williams, which I think is it's a way to go in his case. But it's a great film. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. You know what you're going to expect from it. You're going to usually get a great movie out of it, and I recommend Insomnia if you have not seen it. But yeah, definitely check it out, Insomnia. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is DreamWorks' latest animated feature, their first since Shrek, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron.
Be in my heart, spirit, who could not be broken.
From the Academy Award-winning studio that brought you Shrek comes a new kind of hero. DreamWorks Pictures presents the freedom, the friendship, and the spirit that could not be broken. Spirit, rated G. Memorial Day weekend everywhere.
So this was their big follow-up to Shrek. After Shrek became an Oscar winner and a box office hit and put them on the map. This is their first 2D animated film they've done since Road to El Dorado, because they had Chicken Run, which was a stop-motion film, and then Shrek, of course. And the story of this movie is that you have Spirit, a Kiger Mustang stallion voiced by Matt Damon through inner dialogue. So he's not really talking, it's just his dialogue doing the narration for him, who was captured during the American Indian War by the United States Cavalry. He is freed by a native man named Little Creek, who attempts to lead him back into the Lakota village. In contrast to the way animals are portrayed in an anthropomorphic style in other animated features, Shrek I got Shrek on the brain right now. Shrek is life, but Spirit and his fellow horses communicate with each other through non-logistical sounds and body language like real horses, which is, I think, a very good idea. I mean, Bambi is one of the best examples of how you can have an interesting story going on without really a whole lot of dialogue to it. And really, when I watched this movie the first time, I thought it was alright, but after seeing that god-awful movie, Spirit Untamed, that movie made me appreciate this movie a lot more than I did before. And I never said I didn't like the movie, per se. I remember watching it once or twice and thinking, like, it's alright. I mean, it's nothing too special, but after watching Untamed, I have to give this movie a lot more credit than it actually gets, because, you know, for DreamWorks, it's the most ambitious movie they had done up to that point as a young upstart studio that just had its first major blockbuster hit in Shrek. And to immediately follow it up with, like I said, kind of their equivalent to Bambi in a way, it focuses more on a visual approach that most movies of its type would, and there's more emphasis on the emotions of the characters and having, you know, the goofy talking animals like DreamWorks would have down the road. There are no talking animals in here. The only animal speaking is the narration of Matt Damon, and even then, it's just the character talking, but through his thoughts. And this animation still looks incredible. This was back when 2D animation was on the downward spiral. It was fading out with most theatrical releases because they were realizing that CG is the way to go, and it was costing more and more to make, and it wasn't returning much of a profit. And this movie definitely shows that money going into full effect here. But then again, when you have somebody like James Baxter, who is a phenomenal animator, you may not know that name in particular, but you have definitely seen his work before. If you grew up with the Disney movies of the 90s, he was one of the head animators on The Lion King. You know, he worked on Roger Rabbit. He worked on Hunchback of Notre Dame. He did a ton of movies, and you could tell whenever you see his animation style, if you watch him closely, like anytime you see his animation style, you could definitely tell, oh yeah, that's definitely him. It's just like I said, if you haven't seen his work before, if you don't know who he is, you've definitely, regardless of Toy Boat. I'm getting confused here, but regardless if you've never heard of his name before, you have definitely seen his work before. And what he does with this movie is impressive. The animation overall is just incredible, and you know, I like the movie's message too. It gets across, making it stand out more and more now than ever before. You know, you got a lot of deep, heavy, topical elements that aren't preachy, but are well represented, and it doesn't dumb itself down to the kids. I mean, you know, unlike the, you know, obviously god-awful CG sequels, but not this film. Like I said, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron is actually more impressive than I gave it any credit for. It plays with your expectations a lot. It wasn't just a typical movie centering around a horse. It took chances. It wasn't afraid to talk down to kids with its story and message. I mean, a horse escapes colonizers and befriends a Native American. There's a lot of deep, heavy issues and message getting across in this movie, and it's done fairly well when it's not preachy, but it feels authentically done. It's a movie that I really found myself enjoying more and more as time goes on. And after Spirit Untamed, I was just kind of like, you know what? I give this movie a lot more credit than it has any right to be, because this is a film that definitely deserves a lot more attention than it gets. See this one, avoid that god-awful movie Spirit Untamed, for the love of God. Speaking of movies that you should probably also avoid too, let's go ahead and take a look at our last film, and that is Jennifer Lopez in the thriller Enough.
Changed her identity.
I like this.
Started a new life.
You like it here?
All to escape the most dangerous man she's ever known.
You have a divine animal right to protect your own life and the life of your offspring.
What do you do?
I attack.
Jennifer Lopez.
Self-defense is not murder.
Enough. Rated PG-13. In theaters May 24th.
So yeah, if this didn't have Jennifer Lopez in the main credits, this probably would have been a Lifetime Movie of the Week. Easily. Because, let's talk about the plot. Local waitress Slim Miller... What a stupid name that is. Slim Miller, played by Jennifer Lopez, discovers that the dream man she married isn't who she thought he was. Shocker. Slim and her young daughter try to escape, aided by her previous boyfriend, but the now villainous husband pursues her relentlessly. Fearing also for the safety of her daughter, Slim decides that there's only one way out of the marriage: kill him. And yeah, like I said, if this was a Lifetime, Jennifer Lopez, if she wasn't involved in this would have been the Lifetime movie of the week. And it's got great people behind it. Michael Apted's a great director. Nicholas Kazan is a really good director who's made a lot of good stuff. And I mean, Jennifer Lopez has proven time and time again that she can be a really good actress if you put her in something good. But I'm sorry, this is just a bad movie. This is a terrible, terrible film that is nothing but a Lifetime movie of the week that has been blown up because they got a top actress instead of like a, you know, I don't know, Meredith Baxter Birney or Judith Light or whoever was a popular star in the 1980s. And this is a 2002 movie. I don't know. I'm just thinking, but yeah, there's nothing about this movie that's enjoyable. Like, you don't feel like any real sense of it. You don't feel any real emotions between any of the characters in here that are really being abused here. It's just like, this is a movie that's just bad. It's just bad. Like, it's a terrible movie. It's a terribly written storyline. There's no element to the storyline where it makes any sense whatsoever. And it's really a piece of exploitation. Like, it's really exploiting the idea of spousal abuse, and you can't do this in a way like this. Like this movie only exists to do one thing, and that's get women who are just like, you know, they've been beaten by somebody or somebody's treating them badly. It's just like, you know what I think I should do? I should go hurt that person badly, or even kill him. Like, that's what a movie like this really is trying to get out there, and like, that's not a thing that you want to have going out there. Like, you can't have a movie like this that's basically supporting the idea of killing somebody who treated you so badly, or beating them to senseless, or beating them into submission. It's just like there are ways to do this where it doesn't feel exploitive, but this is the definition of an exploitive movie that just does not have anything about it whatsoever that makes it memorable or stand out on its own. It's a movie that is just... It's an abysmal movie, and it's a waste of the talents of the people involved, especially Jennifer Lopez, who has done so much better acting roles than this. This just feels like a missed opportunity on so many levels. A good director, a good writer, and they all came together and made a movie that was basically the definition of a movie that would be literally seen as a Lifetime movie of the week. But because it's Jennifer Lopez in the opening titles, it's just like, blow it up for the big screen, and her fans will come. We'll throw one of her new songs on there just to get people in the theater. And yeah, needless to say, the course of the last year with Mariah Carey, Britney Spears, and now Jennifer Lopez, it has not been a good year so far. What are we at now? Probably 7-8 months. It's not been a good 7-8 months for music stars blowing up on the big screen. Aaliyah is another example with Queen of the Damned. It's just like, but yeah, I'm just rambling on right here. This is a bad movie. This is just a terrible, terrible movie that gets a wrong kind of message out there. And Jennifer Lopez deserves much better than this. Everybody involved in this deserves much better than this garbage. Avoid it like the plague, plain and simple.
That's your job.
Welcome to the CIA.
From the best-selling thriller by Tom Clancy.
3 Russian scientists are missing. I need to know where they are.
It's Ryan! The bomb is in play!
They think it might be the Russians.
It wasn't the Russians!
Ben Affleck.
A neo-fascist bought an A-bomb on the black market.
Morgan Freeman.
It adds up. You just don't like what it adds up to.
Get me through to the president. Punch him off.
The Sum of All Fears. Directed by Phil Robinson. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, May 31st.
You know, I've praised the Jack Ryan movies beforehand with The Hunt for Red October, Clear and Present Danger, and Patriot Games. I still really like those ones a lot, and I even like Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit, but this is the one that I don't like. You have an Austrian neo-Nazi who plans to trigger a nuclear war between the United States and Russia so that he can establish a fascist superstate in Europe. After the neo-Nazi scientists build a secret nuclear weapon that is detonated in Baltimore, and a rogue Russian officer paid off by the neo-Nazis attack a U.S. aircraft carrier, the world's superpowers are pushed close to the brink of war, and CIA analyst Jack Ryan, played by Affleck, is the only person who realizes that the Baltimore bomb was a black market weapon, not a Russian one. With the clock ticking, Ryan has to find a way to stop the impending nuclear war. Which, I mean, if you see the movie and you see the fact that the bomb goes off and nuclear war pretty much has already started at that point, but logic takes a big backwards turn in this particular movie, and that's one of the main reasons why I do not like this one as much. Not to say that Ben Affleck is a bad choice for Jack Ryan. I mean, Ben Affleck is more than proven that he could be a good actor. We just saw him in Changing Lanes not too long ago, but in this, it's not his fault the movie is bad. It's the script. The script, I think, is going a little bit too over the top. The fact that we actually see something big happen in this case, when it's something like Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games and The Hunt for Red October, it's not as crazy as nuclear war actually happening like it happens in this movie. And you can pretty much, it's one of those ones where you can easily predict who's the real bad guy, who's working for who, and it's just like, the other movies did a very good job of at least hiding it or making it clear from the get-go who's clearly working for the bad guy. Like in Hunt for Red October, you know who the bad guy is. It's Sean Connery. I mean, in Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, they make it clear that, you know, you don't really know for certain who is behind, who's working for who. And in this case, everyone you see, you can automatically figure out who's working for who, like who is, who's working for the good guys, who's working for the bad guys, and like, there's no mystery, there's no surprise to it. And I think the reason why they have that scene where the bomb goes off in this movie is just like to wake the audience up, because for the most part, this movie is really boring. I remember going to see this movie in the theaters, and honestly, that's the scene from the trailers where the bomb goes off. It was just like, okay, part of me's kind of interested to this. This was actually the first Jack Ryan movie I ever saw, and I'm glad I saw the other ones, because if I saw this movie as my first real introduction to this, I would have never wanted to see the other movies, honestly. But yeah, the movie just isn't entertaining. There's just nothing about it that's interesting. There's nothing about it that's really engaging or exciting. There's no mystery to it that works, and it just doesn't feel like a movie that really knew what they were trying to accomplish here. And I'm glad they turned the series around with the Chris Pine one that came out about over 10 years later, which I still think that's a really good one, directed by Kenneth Branagh. That's one that a lot of people have a lot of mixed opinions on. Some people really don't like it, but that's the one I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that one a lot. And I've also enjoyed the John Krasinski show on Amazon Prime. I think that's a great show. And this is really the only Jack Ryan associated thing that I've really not been a fan of. And it's just that I don't feel like there really is there's nothing really there. There's nothing really all that exciting or intriguing. And like I said, you can easily figure out who's working for who's the bad guy, and nothing about them is interesting whatsoever. It's just like, if you're gonna give us the bad guy right from the get-go, make him an interesting character. You know, make the situations more interesting and intriguing for the audience to get attached to. And unfortunately for me, it was just not there with this movie. I mean, it's one that I've tried to go back to several times, and it's just like, you know, every time I try to watch it, it's just like, I just can't get anything from it, honestly. It's just like, nope, still feel the same way I did when I saw this in theaters, and, yeah, not much more to say about this particular film. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say for you about this one. The Sum of All Fears, easily the worst Jack Ryan movie, easily the worst thing associated with Jack Ryan, hands down. All the other movies, all the TV show, watch those. Don't even bother with this. Like, this is one of those ones where it's just like, yeah, this is pretty bad. So yeah, Sum of All Fears. So let's go ahead and take a look at the second film we have this weekend, and that is Undercover Brother.
From Malcolm D. Lee, director of The Best Man,
Undercover Brother, you the best.
comes this summer's Laugh-A-Minute surprise comedy hit.
Show 'em what you're working with.
You'll discover that this is one bad soul brother. BET.com gives Undercover Brother 4 Afro Puffs.
Behind every great black man is the police. No. A strong black woman.
It's a funkadelic fun ride. Rated PG-13. Now playing a...
So essentially, you've got kind of the black equivalent to Austin Powers. In fact, it even has the writer who wrote the sequels, Michael McCullers, on the hand to write the script for this, along with John Ridley, who would later go on to write the Oscar-winning 12 Years a Slave. The story is that you have a white, faceless corporate despot known only as the Man, who has the power to unleash a terrifying top-secret weapon, an irresistibly packaged psycho-hallucinogenic drug that will reduce the entire population to mindless zombies, but black folks have soul. But with enough funky sense of style, a smooth way with the ladies, and an absolute hunger for justice with his Bruce Lee moves, Cadillac attitude, and an arsenal of outrageous disguises and gadgets, Undercover Brother, played by Eddie Griffin, is recruited by the group of good guys known as the Brotherhood, an all-black Justice League to foil the man's plan to derail a Colin Powell-like presidential candidate, and Undercover Brother's undercover exploits keep the slim plot moving. But while he and his sassy cat-fighting partner, known as Sister Girl, played by Aujane Ellis, tries to find out what's going on, the leader's ruthless right arm, Mr. Feather, played by Chris Kattan, discovers the conspiracy's sexy secret weapon, Penelope Snow, played by Denise Richards, who is also known as the White She-Devil. And, yeah, this is pretty much what Black Dynamite kind of would perfect a couple of years down the road. But, I don't know, for what this movie was, I think it was fun. It's definitely not as funny as something like Black Dynamite, which, like I said, I think perfected this much better than this movie did. But at the same time, it's still a very entertaining movie. Eddie Griffin definitely shows a lot of comedic opportunities with this. Like, he gets a rare opportunity for a leading role in this when he looks really well here. It's got a great cast overall. I mean, like I said, Griffin, Kattan, Richards Ellis, Dave Chappelle's in this, Chia McBride, Neil Patrick Harris, Gary Anthony Williams, Billy D. Williams, James Brown, Robert Townsend. I mean, they got a lot of good people in here. Jim Kelly has an uncredited cameo in here as well. I mean, there's a lot of things about the movie that work. A couple of jokes in here, I'll say this, not every single joke in this works, and I think that's really one of the biggest flaws that really makes me keep this from saying this is a classic movie. I think the film as a whole is a good film. I don't think it's a perfect film. I think, like I said, I think not every single joke works, but the ones that work are legitimately funny. And for a PG-13 movie, I really wasn't expecting a whole lot. I don't think PG-13 is like, there are times when PG-13, like, it really depends on which direction they go with it. Do they go for the safe route? Do they go for something that's close to an R rating? And this one, for the most part, goes closer to more raunchy material that's not really an R rating. And like I said, when it works, it works. When it does, it's not the worst thing ever, because they move on to something else and essentially becomes something much better and different afterwards. And yeah, I think it works okay. There are a lot of aspects I do like about it. Not everything about it works, like I said, but it is something that is at least something I can recommend as something like a good, fun time. Like, you can watch it, have a good time with it. It's not one I'd watch on repeat numerous times, but it's something that every once in a while, if it's on TV and there's nothing else on, I'll definitely check it out. I mean, it's definitely worth it, but it's not one I'd say that's a must-watch. I mean, it's a good movie. Not a great film, but it's definitely a very good movie. And I like this director, Malcolm Lee, a lot. He also did The Best Man. And, like I said, I thought it was fine for what it is, but good, not great. That's probably the best way to describe Undercover Brother. Good, not great.